right. Chair lays out House Bill 541 and recognizes Representative Patterson to explain the bill. First, Chair or Representative Shine offers up a committee substitute. And Representative Patterson, you recognize to explain the bill in the committee substitute. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for the opportunity to bring this bill forward. This bill is, the committee substitute is very similar to Chairman Canales' bill. And I look forward to working with him and putting our heads together to make sure that we have the best possible legislation that we can have for this committee to consider. I have a lot of notes here. Chairman Canales took a lot of those. And so I just want to equate this situation for our first responders with something that happened my freshman year in college. September 11th was my freshman year in college, and I think all of us obviously remember that day. But those of us that remember the aftermath of that day and the first responders who went to ground zero to try to find people from the wreckage and did their best to save as many lives as they possibly could and give people the dignity of having remains and to bury and so on and so forth. They knew that they were going into that site. They knew the risks. They knew the air quality. They knew the possible problems that would exist in the air that they would be breathing in, and they went anyways. And I bring that up because this is exactly where we are today. Hopefully another one-off scenario for our first responders who went in anyways, knowing the dangers. Our EMS workers, our ambulance riders, the folks riding out on the fire trucks, our firefighters, our police officers, our jailers. These folks knew all the risks and they went anyways. They exposed themselves and their families, not only their health, but their financial well-being, and they went anyways. And so that's what this bill is about. I filed this bill in large part because early on in COVID, there was a police officer in the Colony, Texas, who believed that he was experiencing COVID symptoms and was getting a lot of pushback about his benefits, essentially. And that's the reason that I originally filed the bill. Since then, we have had a tragedy in Denton County with the death of Deputy Constable Wayne Rhodes from my district, who was a loyal public servant for a very long period of time and died as a result of COVID-19 when most of the people in that constable's office, which I should let you know that I share an office with them. My district office, my state rep office is in the same very small building that our constable's office out of and our Justice of the Peace office is out of. And most of the folks in their office got COVID-19, and Deputy Constable Wayne Rhodes happened to die from it. And it was a significant loss for our community. Technically speaking, about the bill and the committee substitute, the committee substitute clarifies that in order for a public safety to qualify for the presumption, they must have received a positive test that is FDA approved, be employed in an area that is under a disaster declaration by the governor, have contracted the illness during the state of disaster, and be a full-time employee. We are also working with stakeholders on language that would make sure that if you are a full-time employee but you haven't been at work, you've been on paternity leave or you were on vacation for 3 weeks or something that you wouldn't necessarily be included here. So we are working on, we're trying to work with everybody to let their concerns be heard. But I believe it's critical that we provide care and compensation for our public safety employees that have fallen ill or died as a result of this virus. I know that a lot of these discussions from serving on this committee last session and again this session, I know that a lot of these discussions come down to money. And I get it. I realize that, and it's incredibly unfortunate because we're actually talking about people's lives and we're talking about people having to fight for their benefits. You heard many of their stories earlier. But I want you to know that I have submitted a rider request for $200 million of federal funds from the American Rescue Plan. The funds would be appropriated by the governor and would cover the costs associated with workers' compensation claims filed by public safety employees or their surviving spouses who are presumed to have contracted COVID-19 due to their employment and have suffered disability or death as a result. Expenses aside, remember that these are people that knew the risks, but more than that, they understand that protecting the people of Texas is part of their job, and I would say their calling, and it isn't one that can be done from home. Members, I know that there were a number of witnesses that were here earlier today. I mean, I know that because the nature of Chairman Canales' bill and my bill being very, very similar, that some of them have left, and that's perfectly okay. And if there are folks here that don't want to share their testimony twice, that's fine too. And, but if there's anyone that has anything new to say, we'd certainly welcome them as well. This bill means a lot to me, and I'm honored to lay it out before this committee, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Members, are there any questions for Rep. Patterson?
I do.
I recognize Representative Shine.
Since this bill is so much similar to Representative Terry Canales' bill, is it possible that the two of you can take the guts of each one and combine them and really have a good bill, and y'all just joint author it together?
That's certainly a possibility. I'm in a position where my joint authors, Nicole Collier, Dustin Burrows, and Todd Hunter, who's agreed. And I've also offered a spot to our chairman of our committee. I know Canales has asked me to joint author his bill. I would be happy to work with him. I want this policy passed. So whether it has his name at the front or mine, I really don't care.
I think that's what's important with principled leaders that are part of this body, is that occasionally we do find ourselves with legislation that kind of is identical in many ways, but has a little bit of difference. And one of the things is, as I guess a benefit to the multiple authors is to be able to join together, but also for those people that testify and bring their testimony and everything, so that we don't have it be redundant. And from that standpoint, because I think the testimony we had earlier today on Terry Canales' bill was certainly very moving, and there may still be some folks that are here, and I would not think any of us on this committee that listened to that testimony this morning forgot it. Okay, because it's real, it's human, and I appreciate the work that you've done, because I've been in that situation too, where there's been bills that are of similar nature, and I think that's just good public policy when we can work together and do those kind of things. Just a suggestion.
Yes, sir. And he and I have worked together on other bills in the past, and he's been a pleasure to work with, and so I look forward to doing that as well. And the only other thing that I would add to that is that we have worked closely with the Texas State Firefighter Association, with TMPA, with CLEAT, with and even TML Intergovernmental Risk Pool. We've had meetings, TAC. We have had a lot of stakeholder meetings, and folks I think are earnestly trying to come to the table to do something right here. And we just may ultimately have a difference of opinion with some folks on what this benefit needs to be. But I do appreciate the folks that have honestly come to the table to try to work out a solution.